David here with figbootonpens. Today I'm going to be taking a look at another flagship pen, and this is a flagship pen of the Sailor Pen Company, and that pen is the Sailor King of Pen. Now, I'm not certain why it's called the King of Pen rather than the King of Pens. Maybe it's a translation thing from Japanese, possibly, or maybe it's only the king over a single pen. I'm not certain. It's a very nice pen though, so it is certainly king of more than one other pen. So what I'm going to do today is talk about the parts and the features of the King of Pen and go over what I care for and what I don't care for about it, give some measurements, show some size comparisons, and then provide a writing sample. I wanted to mention too that I will be at the DC Pen Show this upcoming week. I'm really looking forward to the show, and if you're there and see me walking around, then feel free to say hi. I'd love to hear from you. The King of Pen arrives in this sleeve and this very nice hardwood presentation box, a nice dark wood, and it says right there, the King of Pen. And then inside we have some padding, then we have a little instruction manual and filling instructions, then it comes with some instructions for how to use the ink, some nice information about the pen, which I'll go over in a little bit, and then a polishing cloth, which is nice to include. And then this is how the pen is presented, which is a very nice case. It comes with a nice bottle of the Sailor Black ink, and then more importantly, here is the pen. This is the King of Pen, or the KOP as it's commonly abbreviated, and this comes in many different variations, and this one here is the Ebonite version. This pen has a very simple minimalistic design, and that it has a high shine and a lacquer finish to it as well. This cigar-shaped design has no cap bands or other decoration, with the exception of the clip. The end of the cap is rounded, and that here we also have the traditional Sailor stair-step clip, which you could see here. There's a slight step down from the cap to the barrel, which is not sharp at all. And then we have the barrel, which tapers down to another rounded end, which is slightly smaller than the cap end, so they don't necessarily mirror each other. The cap twists off to reveal this gorgeous 21K solid gold rhodium plated nib. I believe it's only available in medium and broad, as well as some specialty nibs like the Cross Point or the King's Eagle and a few others. Sailor nibs are some of my favorite, and the rhodium plating on this nib matches the plating on the clip. And then here's a picture of the plastic feed. With the rest of the pen being Ebonite, other than the section, it would have been cool if the feed was Ebonite as well, but that's not the case in this pen. The section actually has a little bit of a flare at the end and is fairly large. I like large sections a great deal, and I find this one to be very comfortable. Even for extended writing sessions, it's very comfortable. It's pretty much a perfect size, at least for me. It's not resin, it's resin, it's not Ebonite, but visually you really can't tell the difference between this. The section tapers up a little bit and transitions into the barrel threads, which are really not sharp at all. And when you twist the barrel off, you can see that the silver band here is actually part of the inner housing. Now, this part of the pen here is identical to that of the Classic Pens LB5. And I think you know how highly I regard that pen, as well as many other folks. So yeah, this part of the pen is identical to the LB5. The biggest knock of the King of Pen is that it is a cartridge converter pen. Some folks feel if you pay this much for a pen, this is a pen that can retail is for in the $700 to $800 range, that you should be getting a piston filler in that price range. I don't necessarily agree with that. Sailor does have proprietary ink cartridges and converters, and so you can't use standard international, but a converter is included in this pen. And I really don't mind the converter. I have a tendency to switch inks a great deal, and so a smaller ink capacity isn't something that really bothers me. I'm not in a situation where I typically run out of ink in a single day, so that really doesn't bother me. And there is a nice ink window in here as well, which is nice. And that the rather large housing, which really serves to give this pen a very good balance when it's in your hand. The cap does post securely and is really light enough that it doesn't backweight the pen. It posts deeply enough that it doesn't make it unwieldy as well. That while it is a rather large pen, that you could use it posted with no issues. The Ebonite is very warm to the touch and really has kind of an elasticity to it. It's a unique texture and it has a distinct odor to it. The unique feature of this pen and Ebonite in general is kind of the slow progressive color change that is going to happen over time from a jet black to a deep black brown. In order to keep an Ebonite pen in its best condition, you're going to want to avoid direct sunlight and fluorescent light as much as possible. You'll kind of want to keep it in a dark, dry area, and you'll also want to use soft cloths, just like they included, for wiping down the pen. The soft material is susceptible to some scratches. And over the years, the look for an Ebonite pen is going to change a bit. And how much it will change is dependent on your care in handling. I've had this pen for 6 or 7 months and it hasn't changed at all, but the Ebonite smell is a little bit less potent than it was when I received the pen right out of the box. Every Sailor King of Pen is handcrafted in Japan, and production times really can vary. There is many different varieties of the King of Pen, and over several of their pen lines. And that sometimes the wait for these pens can be 6 months to up to a year. The retailer I had purchased this model from had originally told me it'd be about 10 months in order for me to receive it. But then they were able to get one in a couple of weeks. So I was very thankful for not having to wait that long for this pen. I like this pen a great deal. The Ebonite gives the King of Pen some life to it. The warmth of material in your hand gives it some personality, which I enjoy. And as we'll see in the writing sample, the combination of slight feedback, smoothness, and precision of this nib really makes it a joy to use. So it's time for some measurements, some size comparisons, and then the aforementioned writing sample. So here we go with some size comparisons for the Sailor King of Pen. And here it is in regard to the Classic Pens LB5. Even though they're the section and the nib are identical, you can see that this is slightly larger. And in regard to some other flagship pens, we have a Pelikan M1000 and then a Montblanc 149. And you can see that it's larger than both of those. And in regard to some other pens with unique materials, here it is next to a Lamy 2000 with its Macrolon, then a Pilot Vanishing Point with its Raiden and its mother of pearl, and then here it is next to a Visconti Homo Sapiens Dark Ages with its lava rock resin combination. So here we go with the writing sample for the Sailor King of Pen. Now this is a medium nib, and it is 21K. And the ink I'm using today is the Bungbox 4B. And this is what the bottle looks like. That it looks similar to the Sailor bottles. This is the Sailor bottle that came with the King of Pen, the Sailor Black, and this is the 4B, which is this nice blue black. And that I like everything about these inks other than the bottles, because if you're going to try to get this spectacular nib in this bottle, you're going to have a hard time, and that pretty much you have to just take out the converter and just fill up the converter. So that I wish that their quality of their bottles, while they look nice, the functionality of them needs to live up to the functionality and the quality of their pens. But the ink is fantastic. So here we go with the rest of the writing sample. This nib is spectacular. I have a tendency, I don't have a tendency to use a lot of flex when I'm writing, but I do find that this pen does give you a lot of flex with not much effort. And as you can see here, even just like in my G's or something like that, that it just gives a little bit of flair to it that I like. It just has the right combination of feedback as well as precision, because you don't feel like these nibs are stubby at all. They just feel very sharp with just a little bit of feedback and just the right amount of softness. I just really, really, really like these Sailor nibs, and especially the King of Pen nibs. It has a decent amount of wetness to it. I wouldn't say it's a gusher, but it's not dry by any means. And in regard to reverse writing, it's actually very, very nice. I have some pens that don't write that well in the correct orientation. And then in regard to fast writing, I've had no problems with this this feed keeping up at all, and it just writes amazing. So here we have the Sailor King of Pen. It's a classic minimalistic design, which I really feel serves this pen well, and a nib that is virtual perfection in my mind. It is truly, truly that good. I highly recommend picking up a King of Pen in whatever model you can. So thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.